Hello, hello. This is the 219th Test from the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 2225, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. So I just got here, Simon.
Mm-hmm.
And I often, as the listeners potentially know, don't actually teleport straight to your apartment, but teleport nearby. They opened up a few teleporters in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I teleport there and then just walk here.
Sure, have a brief walk on your way.
Get a bit of fresh air, a bit of sunlight. And I even walk up all your stairs sometimes.
Yep.
All 16 stairs. And I noticed a lot of construction works downstairs.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's not noisy right now, happily, but it's been pretty noisy the last few days.
And I thought I can ask you before we start recording, but I thought maybe it can be interesting for the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
What on earth are they doing?
Mm-hmm. So they are building, I guess, or refurbishing the downstairs of this building. They're going to open a recreation store.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So not really
relevant for me.
No, not really relevant for me either.
But friends of ours will
yes.
enjoy it.
That's for robots.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yes. Okay. Lots of robots in your building?
A few, yeah. But also, it's not just for people who live in the building. Yeah, it's regular business down there.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you had robot neighbors, right? Are they still there?
I'm a bit out of touch, I'm afraid. So
okay.
Sometimes it's funny. I don't go out for a little bit, and then when I go out, it's like, the doormat's changed outside the apartment, so I guess new people have moved in.
Or they got a new doormat. That's the thing with teleportation, right? You usually teleport in and out. Could be that you never, not meet your neighbors for a long time, because why would you actually go out into the hallway?
Yeah. And I mean, yourself, sure, for the fun of it, but exactly, normally I'm teleporting directly places.
I have it because we're already getting off topic. But because my building is like pyramid shaped.
Right.
So if I stand on my on my balcony garden thingy, I look down on the garden below me.
Right. And just see gardens going ever down.
Exactly. So I see like my downstairs neighbors and their downstairs neighbors, because it's like a pyramid. I see them more often than the people on my own floor.
Right.
Yeah. Especially in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh.
So.
Yes. Okay. What were we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about a dinner we went to.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or
just yesterday.
Yes. Or a zero gravity dinner.
Exactly, for Soul Spice.
Yes. So we've now used a few words that maybe your listeners will want explained.
Possibly. Dinner is a meal you have toward the end of the day, usually.
Zero is the number before 1.
Yeah, correct. And after -1. Gravity is the thing that keeps us from floating off into space.
Yeah.
Put them all together.
Yes.
And that's what we did. So it was an event, a big dinner, and the gimmick, I guess, or the unique twist on it was that it was in zero gravity. So not out in space, just in a banquet hall where, the artificial gravity was turned off.
And that was pretty cool. And you mentioned it was especially for Soul Spice, so maybe our listeners know Soul Spice, the celebration. We mentioned it a few times, twice a year.
Exactly, shortest and longest day of the year.
Yeah, and we all celebrate it in all kinds of different ways. And Soul Spice is kind of a spin on it. You know? This is just the regular old Soul Spice celebrations, but spicy.
Exactly.
And then a spicy dinner is already fun by itself.
Exactly.
And it's much more fun in zero gravity. Which is something that...
A lot of things are much more fun in zero gravity.
Exactly. So this was a hypothesis that we had before. This must be more fun in zero gravity. And now we can confirm.
Yep.
That's actually the case.
Yep. A bit messier, of course. That added to the fun.
Yeah, that's true, actually. But we took precautions. I mean, they had a packing list.
Yeah, right. Like what you should wear and take with you and things like that.
Yeah, and what you shouldn't take with you.
More to the point,
Things that can break. Yeah, we didn't take any things that can break.
Nope, correct.
And a lot of the other participants also properly prepared. I don't think I saw many things break.
No, that's correct. I mean, you didn't have to take your own cutlery, of course. That was magnetic, stuck to the table. Yeah. But right to your point, like we dressed in clothes that would work, that wouldn't like float all around our heads and get in our soup and stuff like that.
Yeah, and also something like a glass or so. A glass could break, but surprise, you don't actually need glasses.
No, right. Have these little orbs of liquid floating nearby, pierce them with a straw, drink them through the straw until they're no longer, the orb is gone. I
mean, the thing is, everything that we have is kind of based on gravity, right? So you would think that gravity is the default behavior of everything. But for liquids, you need some sort of container, otherwise they kind of disappear.
Like dissipate over the ground.
Yeah, exactly. So like coffee, if you don't put coffee in a container, you can't actually drink it.
It's very tricky, especially when it's hot.
Yeah, exactly. But in zero gravity, that's not a problem. Okay, hot coffee.
They take much longer to cool down because the surface area is not optimal for it. But sure, you don't need a container.
Exactly, you don't actually need a container. So to me, I had the feeling that the liquids, they were in their natural environment. That's the idea that I had. It's like you don't need anything anymore to keep them in place. Yeah. So,
I mean, electromagnetic fields. Otherwise, there's a brief breeze and it would start floating over to someone. So there were electromagnetic fields to keep things roughly in the same area, that they wouldn't go in float over to someone's lap and burn them.
I mean, that was also the messier bit, right? So because theoretically everything is floating in place, but with a lot of people, things move because you could blow and you would go backwards a little bit, and the liquid would go in the opposite direction a little bit more, which was. I was going to say we're going random through the event now, but that was the
drinks were at the start. So.
True, but I was getting at the break entertainment where they had some like tiny zero graph games to lighten up the mood, and then this was like blowing your drink to the other side of the table.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yep.
And messy.
Yep. Right, because they had the electromagnetic fields for safety, like for hot drinks and so on. But crumbs and so on, that's fine. So they were flying everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is near the end of the dinner.
Right, at the start, everyone's being very careful. After a few drinks, after eating a bunch, it's a bit more relaxed.
And also, I think it's the moment you start to notice like little bits of food floating around. At one point, you start to be a little bit less careful,
right,
to not have everything drift off.
Yeah.
Because near the end of the dinner,
the one who started it, so it's all fine.
you could basically see bits of all the courses that you had floating around in a room. And if you thought, oh man, this chocolate pie that we had as a second course, I would love to have that again. It's probably around here somewhere,
At least some fragments, yeah.
Just float around a bit. You're bound to bump into some of it. So maybe we describe briefly where I was.
Right. For our listeners who don't know these things, since they weren't there with us. Sure, it was in France, at a palace.
Yeah.
I said a banquet hall earlier, but yeah, banquet hall in a palace.
Banquet hall in a palace. That was pretty cool. What I liked was you didn't actually teleport into the hall. You didn't actually teleport into the palace. So the teleporters were in the garden pavilion. Is that a word? Pavilion?
Yeah, the pavilion, yeah.
And then basically you got out of the pavilion and you were in a rose garden and you could see the palace and you just walked towards it. It just felt, I don't know.
It's like they were inspired by you, like walking here for the podcast. They thought, oh yeah, let's do it that way too.
You think they're inspired by me?
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing it longer, yeah?
Well, I'm a trendsetter. But I thought that was a really nice eye for detail because the castle looked
to get
amazing.
to appreciate exactly that you could appreciate it rather than just teleporting directly like into your seat, round a table, and then not even know where you were.
And if you're in the palace, you don't appreciate how amazing it looks from the outside.
Correct, like you can appreciate the ceilings up above you and so on, but exactly you don't get to see the outside if you only teleport directly there.
So they said that most of the castle was actually. I keep saying castle. They were very keen on.
They kept saying palace. I mean, it is a palace.
Exactly, and they were also keen on us calling it a palace. Yeah. But most of it was open, so even between the courses, you could basically leave the anti-grav room and then walk around. But I didn't, except for the bathroom. Did you look at anything?
I mean, it was nice, being, like I mentioned, the ceilings earlier, yeah? And normally you see them from far away, but it was nice being able to float on up there and have a look at there were paintings and there was also moulding, where you have to really fine detail work around the edges and so on.
Yeah, you're right. That was...
Yeah, floated on up there, had a look. I wasn't the only one, other people were up there too, of course.
You have some nice conversation because you're looking at something and people go like, hey, he's looking at something, and then they float over to see what it is.
Exactly, and especially it's impressive because, those kinds of things you normally see from all the way down on the ground, on the floor. So getting up close to them, they're much bigger, than they seem from, obviously I'm kind of speaking obvious stuff here, but when you're really far away, they seem really tiny. When you get up close to them, oh, okay, these were really huge things. It's nice to see the detail work there.
Yeah, true.
Well, of course, a bunch of cobwebs, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, exactly. And then, after the dinner, they needed to properly clean the hall anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they can use anti-grav to clean the room.
Right, make all the food crumbs and whatever just get really heavy again. Fall down.
Yeah, so just brush them off the ceiling and then turn on the gravity again, and poof, everything's on the floor. Something like that. But you didn't take a look at the rest of the palace.
Like yourself, I went to the toilet. I guess you went to the one like I did, where when I got to the toilet, the gravity was back again. Or did you go to the anti-gravity, the zero gravity ones?
I didn't even know there was a difference. I went. There wasn't any lack of gravity in the one I used.
So it was like regular toilet.
Yeah, exactly regular toilet.
Yeah. I mean that makes sense because it's fun to have a meal in zero gravity. Not so fun to go to the toilet in zero gravity. So that's fair that they switched on there.
I can imagine it being a fun thing to experience at least once. Although
maybe once, but not like while in the middle of a nice meal.
Yeah, and maybe it's not so fun if you actually need to go to the toilet. No, I didn't even realize this was a possibility. I want to go back.
I mean, I don't know that it was.
Yeah, okay, sure. But there were some people that were getting a little tired of having no gravity at all. So there were definitely some people I noticed occasionally just taking a walk around before getting back into it.
Yeah. Or floating on over to the window, like opening up a crack and like just putting their arm out going, my arm's
I can imagine, you're floating, but then your arm is dangling. And that sounds like fun. I didn't do that. For now, I already have 2 things that I want to do when I get back.
For next time, or either next time at this place or next time you're in zero gravity in general.
Were there any courses that you thought, because they selected the courses also...
Right, so this was all in France, but it wasn't French food especially.
No.
Which I like French food well enough, but I appreciated that it was more variety.
But they said they selected them particularly for zero gravity eating.
Exactly. So, but not in terms of flavor, but in terms of texture. So in terms of messiness.
Yeah, I also thought variation, or kind of interactivity. I don't know how to put it.
Right, some you would use a spoon, some a fork, some chopsticks, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Because they had the one of the earlier dishes, which was pizza.
Sure, and you just use your hand directly.
Exactly, but of course there are a bunch of things on the pizza, but it just kind of stuck to it. So this felt like
easy mode.
Exactly, easy mode. Exactly, that was it. And then it got more challenging.
Yeah. I mean, soup. The soup was tasty, but I mean, it's also a liquid. I mean, with chunks, but a liquid basically. So it's a similar deal to the coffee, where you have this sphere.
Yep.
But it's very hot, so you need to just slowly or carefully take off outer layers. With a spoon, scrape off the outer layers and
then move it to your mouth.
Exactly. Cool it on the way.
I thought I can't remember what the dish was called. I think it was Vietnamese. They had peas, blueberries. They had different round things combined that I've never seen combined before.
Okay.
But they tasted really well together. They had that on the the far end of the hall. Like there was the part where they had like kind of like a buffet of different interactive meals to try.
Sure.
So this was peas, blueberries, and a third round thing that I can't remember.
I didn't have it myself, so I'm afraid I can't recall. But round things, sweet or savoury?
Both.
Sure,
No, sorry.
You said the blueberries
sweet sour.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's like because like there were a bunch of round things and they didn't stick together.
Right.
So basically they held them together until you said I want this, and then they would release them, and then they would start to float away. So you had to basically drift around with your mouth open to catch them. Yeah. Or scope them up with your hand, but like the idea was to do it without hands.
Yeah. So really taking advantage of being in zero gravity.
Yeah. Any other courses? What I like,
kind of a blur. I ate so much.
I like the ice cream. I think it was supposed to be also easy mode, but what I liked to let it melt, because it wasn't like, as you know from ice cream, dripping to the floor,
right.
But it was like the little drops were loosening themselves from the ice and then started to forming kind of like satellites around the ice.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. It just if you let it be, it would just kind of like evolve somehow. That looked really cool.
And right, and you could just have your mouth open nearby, and then the satellites, you'd get to eat them up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, any other special things that you remember?
So we mentioned clothing earlier, and like I said, so you couldn't have really dangly things. Everyone was wearing pretty like close-fitting clothing to avoid it floating in the way of other things. But one person there either hadn't got that note or was like, I don't mind, I want to have. So they looked really impressive. Their clothing was very flowing, but they must have been using also force fields of some kind to make it keep a certain shape. So it almost looked like their body kept changing shape throughout the meal. It wasn't their body, it was the clothing, but and they had it synchronized. I guess they must have got a look at the menu in advance because they had it synchronized with the type of food.
Really?
Well. Didn't realize it at first. I thought it was just random shapes, but after a while I worked it out.
Okay.
That was someone taking it to the next level. I was there for the food rather than the...
Yeah, I mean, it definitely also was an experience, but especially the person I was sitting next to on the table initially, before everybody just started sitting random places, they already had done it like dozens of times. Apparently, they don't do it just for Solstice or Soul Spice. They do it for... Yeah, I guess makes sense, but I only knew it in this context, but they're doing it for all kinds of occasions. What I thought was a nice gesture is that when everybody left, everybody got this magnetic hi-hat. I mean,
like a top hat, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if you put it on your head and you're in like normal gravity, then it just sticks on your head. But if you wear it in zero gravity, it also sticks to your head. And it's interesting they give it to you when you leave. I think it's also kind of like a marketing thing, because if you want to actually test how it works, of course you can wear it in your own anti-grav room at home, like in my own apartment.
Sure, but it's a bit strange to wear a top hat in your own home.
Exactly, but it's
kind of
not
you
strange
wear when you go out.
Exactly, when you go to your next dinner. Apparently they do that occasionally, but apparently this one was just for this dinner. So if you see people wearing it, they've also been to one of these Soul Spice dinners. Yeah. Zero gravity dinner.
Yeah, I can recommend them.
Yes. So
listeners, when you get the chance, make sure to go along.
Definitely. Talking about listeners.
Right, we have a very short email here. Very short. So from Ragnarok, and Ragnarok wrote to us, and they said, "Stop lying, you're not in the future."
Double exclamation marks.
Indeed, yeah, at the end there.
But
I would disagree.
Yes.
Respectfully, Ragnarok, I would disagree. We are in the future.
And there's two of us now, just one Ragnarok. And also, the thing is, like, I think technically nobody's in the future.
Sure, everyone's in the present. Like, there is no past, there is no future.
So essentially, we're in the present.
Yep.
Just our present happens to be the listener's future.
Right, we're experiencing it later then.
Exactly. And the listeners are in our past.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so basically, if we're not in the future, then the listeners aren't in our past. And, so if
I mean, even in a show without time travel, people send in emails, messages, the hosts read them out.
Yeah.
They're in the future perspective to those emails.
True. And when Ragnarok wrote his email, he
was writing to us in the future, is the point.
Yeah,
whether he believed we were 200 years in the future as we are, or whether he thought it would just be like a few weeks in the future or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So
we disagree, Ragnarok.
Yes, exactly. However you want to put it.
We're in the future and we're not lying.
Exactly.
So we cannot stop.
Yeah. But still, thanks for sending an email.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to hear from you, Ragnarok. I hope you're doing fine in the past.
Yep. And so listeners to Test from the Future who would like to send us even better messages than Ragnarok, please send an email to michaellasagna5@gmail.com and put the number 219 in the subject. That way we'll know you heard us and you're letting us know about it too.
All right. Then thanks for listening and see you in 200 years.
Bye-bye.